And we're live. Welcome back to the LOOPcast. It's Tom, Erica, and Josh. And the reason I wanted to do this episode today is I saw this headline, and I believe it was from Variety, saying, Conclave, the movie, viewership soars after Pope Francis's death, up 283% to nearly 7 million minutes watched.
Oh.
Now, in my brain, as producer of this show, I would like to give Conclave information to people who are interested, not from Hollywood producers that probably charitably saying lack reverence for the source material. The Conclave, an ancient event tying back to apostolic succession, shrouded in mystery, very interesting. So as Catholics who actually respect the event, I hope to provide some history, some fun facts, and just to enjoy the fact that we have this colossal event right now in the public view to select a new leader of the church. But beyond that, Erica, what else do we have going on today?
Yeah, so after your Conclave 411 section, we're going to get into this Maryland case that we had oral arguments before the Supreme Court. It is the first major case of parents versus a school board to make it all the way up to SCOTUS, massive religious freedom implications, and wow, did it get heated with the oral arguments. So that's going to be really interesting. Also, what would you do for $5,000 baby bonus? Would you have another baby? For $5,000, what about for a Medal of Honor from the President of the United States? The New York Times has discovered our demographic decline, and also Project 2025 again, and its efforts, its suggestions to the president for how to reverse population decline. We're going to get into that a little bit. And yeah, little Twilight Zone will be a great Friday.
Great Friday show. And also, for those who don't know, we will actually be at the Courage Under Fire Gala. Someone in the chat was already talking about it. I want to point people over here. We have 13 days, May 23rd, 2025, Nashville, Tennessee. The whole gang's going to be there. Father Mike Schmitz, Matt Walsh, Harrison Bucker, Michael Knowles. And we will be podcasting live from the event. And I will actually be giving a little testimony among the giants here on this list. So if you're interested, go check this out. Go check out the website, courageunderfiregala.org if you want to attend. And stay tuned for all the content coming from that. We're going to get to interview a lot of these people live. So it's going to be a great event.
It's going to be fun.
How are you feeling today, Josh?
Wonderful.
All right.
I mean, it's a Meat Friday.
Yeah.
How can you not be excited about this?
This is true.
Dude, we had breakfast sausage this morning. It was very sweet. It was great.
Glorious.
Sweet and savory.
Okay, so are we ready to go over the history of the conclave here?
Let's do it.
Okay. Apostolic succession, right? Church, very important to us. First Pope, St. Peter, upon this church I will build this rock. So the process of handing down that title and that responsibility has gone way, way back. So in the early church, I was actually curious because the modern conclave didn't actually start happening until I think the 1200s, what we understand the conclave to be now. So in between that period of time, how do we actually choose the Pope? So in the early church, there were 3 criteria for choosing a Pope after the death of Peter, and were traditionally thought to be put in place by St. Paul, who worked in the city for a year or so before his own martyrdom. The criteria: his selection by the clergy, usually the city of Rome, his approval by the faithful, usually of the city of Rome, and his consecration by the metropolitan, or what we call the suburbican bishops of ecclesiastical province, the bishop who oversaw the diocese immediately adjacent to Rome. This remained fairly standard through its limits, expanded as the church grew, because obviously the church was pretty small at one point, which is kind of hard to imagine now as we see this as like a global social political event. Mm-hmm. But yeah, pretty tiny back in the day before it grew. So, formation of the cardinals, papal bull In Nomine Domini. Written by Nicholas II in 1039, the papal bull reformed the election process for the Pope after centuries of interference in the election of the Roman pontiff by emperors of Constantinople and the Holy Roman Empire, by the military, by the Roman nobility, and the rogue nobles of diverse parts of Italy. Pope Nicholas II decreed a historic bull which restricted the right of election to the College of Cardinals, which before did not exist. So quick refresher on the College of Cardinals. Erica, these are the people that go to Rome right now to go pick out the Pope.
They're on their way, and you can find footage online of different cardinals arriving in Rome. And they'll be there, of course, for the funeral. But then the canon law, is it canon law or like the apostolic? Some kind of canon law requires that they start the conclave shortly after the burial of the Pope. So that's probably scheduled to start sometime between May 6th and May 12th is the target date for that. They'll announce that after the burial, of course. And one fun thing about the history of conclave, though, we mentioned last time the longest conclave in history was almost 3 years long. So yeah, we get the papal bull in the 1000s there that says, okay, only the cardinals, only the College of Cardinals are going to elect this guy. And now, of course, it's only cardinals under the age of 80. So there's that additional, these are the guys who vote. But 200 years after that bull in 1268 to 1271, we had the longest conclave ever when Pope Clement IV died. And the infighting and the division among the cardinals when they got together was so grave, it was so vicious and protracted that the magistrates of Viterbo, where the conclave was being held in Italy, locked the cardinals in the Palazzo de Papi, restricted them to bread and water, and eventually even removed the roof from their accommodations.
Wow.
And these techniques were so effective in ending the conclave.
That would have worked on Josh.
They became the basis of canon law.
If they would have taken meat away from Josh, he'd be like, all right, let's get this show on the road, dude. Like, let's get a pope in there.
Chop. I mean, here's the thing, too. We think of them all being locked inside the Sistine Chapel or whatever. So it's helpful to understand, like, when it took 2 years and 9 months, they were just in the city, and they would get together and they would meet, and then they'd go back to nice apartments or whatever. So this was like, no. We're going to stick you in kind of central housing, and you're not able to leave until you get an answer. But like, we already had an answer last night. The Cardinals made their pick. They picked Walter Nolan from University of Ole Miss.
Wait, what?
This is the
I did
first
see that
time in
meme.
history.
Wait, I
have the
retweeted
NFL
that.
draft and the papal thing going on at the same time. This is amazing.
Dude, I did see that tweet.
Did Nora O'Donnell pick it up and be
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, you guys, this is fact?
I have to say, I love when sports and religion collide like this. There's the headline. We got a new pope. Cardinals pick is in.
You got to
Oh,
have fun there,
man.
folks.
That's awesome.
Good times. But do you know why we call it a conclave?
Because literally con with clave means without key,
With-
right?
With
With the
key,
key,
with
cum clavis.
So like they literally locked them in a room. So
a key.
yeah, with the key.
They got to lock him in. So, but of course, first they check if the Pope is dead. I think we covered this, but they hit him on the head with a silver hammer 3 times, calling him by his baptismal name. In modern times, there's also a doctor to double check. But to think back, way back, when they're like, all right, silver hammer, he's still chilling.
I mean, they had to have done it that time because one time they, like thought a Pope was dead and it wasn't. Like, what? Oh.
So another crazy, and we're just going to veer off on this one. So Josh, I went and did the research on the history of betting on popes. And I strongly encouraged our audience to not bet on the Pope because apparently it was a fairly common practice in the 1500s.
Yeah.
And they would literally have betting slips be run between couriers from the conclave to the people in the city. So it'd just be like nobles. Some of the clergy were actually caught betting on the Pope, which is crazy. And they were saying that actually the information, the betting odds were updating in real time because they had someone leaking information from the inside of the conclave to the betting markets,
Oh my
which
gosh.
is just nuts.
Was it one of the Swiss guards?
I don't know. Who knows? Who
Yeah.
knows who it was? And then the other element of that was funny is people used to take out life insurance policies on the Pope because at the time there was actually so much money that people owed back and forth. Like someone would make a big loan to the Vatican or whatever, and they'd be like, I want a return on this money. Or they would be like, okay, if the Pope dies, then I'm going to cash in basically on this money. And so
Oh my gosh.
it was literally causing people to put a hit on the Pope at the time. So they're like, we can't do that. We're not doing the betting thing anymore because Pope Julius II was elected under some suspicion because all of the betting market, they thought bribing was going on. So I believe it was Pope Gregory was like, we're done with this. Like papal bull, cogit nos, you will be excommunicated if you
But it's
bet
also
on
the case
Pope.
that, sometimes, they have all these cardinals in there, talking centuries back, and they'd have like their assistants or someone else like that to help out with things. And then those people would be the ones that would be whispering stuff, right? So that's literally why the term extra omnes, everyone out, get out. It's literally just the cardinals. And they have to elect somebody who's going to be like the guy who communicates with the outside and who's going to do what, because they don't want any, while they're actually deliberating and casting ballots, they have to decide, okay, you're going to be, you three are going to be the one that are going to be the ones that count it. This is the guy that's watching the door, all that kind of stuff. Because you can't like bring in any support staff to come in or out because it's like, there might be.
Conclave.
Yeah. It is pretty amazing to think that the church has literally lasted this long.
Oh, it's a
Just in terms
miracle.
of actual
It is
time. Because
divine
think about all the
intervention.
stuff we deal with in America, right? Like we have our traditions or whatever way of running government. Like they were dealing with people putting hits out on the Pope in the 1500s, and the church was already like 1,000 years old at that point.
Well, no, and then of course it's in Italy, so one of the journalists today, J.D. Flynn, was complaining about like the press office is just not ready for this moment for whatever reason. I mean, they've been doing the synod. They had the death of Pope Benedict, just a couple of years ago. You would think they'd be ready for a moment like this, and they're just not. Like these journalists are trying to get their credentials taken care of, and it's just not working. And the frustration that secular and religious reporters like wanting to get stuff done. It's like, why is it that things are just not done properly? And someone said it calls to mind what Ratzinger said, our Pope Benedict the 16th, said, yes, if the Holy Mother Church were located in Germany, we would be doing our mistakes would be done more efficiently.
Yes. We would screw things up more efficiently. He was a funny guy, right?
He's
funny.
Totally underrated. I'm out
Oh,
of
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Not a Rottweiler at all.
Oh, fearsome intellect, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
Okay, but interesting, Josh. You're always beating the drum on age limits for our politicians here in America. Are you familiar with the age limit to be able to vote as a cardinal?
Yeah. So actually, Cardinal Dolan is from New York. He just turned 75, and so according to the rules established by the Holy Father, going back to I think Paul VI, now that he's 75 years old, he has to put in his resignation letter. It hasn't been accepted yet, and then now the Pope is dead. But Cardinal Dolan is 75. That means he's supposed to announce his resignation from
Being
Archbishop of New York. Again, hasn't been accepted yet, but he's still eligible to vote in the College of Cardinals because he's not yet 80 years old. And in fact, actually, Cardinal Sarah is 79, I believe.
Yeah,
and so
right.
if
Like
this
months away.
conclave had been held in June, he would not be able to vote. But he is able to vote. And in fact, some people are saying he might be in contention. So we'll see. So yeah, once you hit 80 years old, you are no longer eligible to vote. Most cardinals, of course, are also archbishops of dioceses, or retired possibly. But some of them, sometimes in the past, popes will actually name somebody a cardinal even if they haven't been a bishop. So Avery Dulles was named a cardinal, I believe, by John Paul, or maybe it was Benedict. I can't remember.
Timothy Radcliffe was named a cardinal.
Okay,
by
and he's
Francis.
I mean, he's someone that maybe instead of elevating to being cardinal, maybe you could have just laicized him and removed him from the Catholic Church. That would have been the better idea. But hey, teach his own.
Put him in jail.
To each his own. Yeah.
Well,
And
okay,
for example, so another name that's come up a lot this week is Cardinal Zen, who we just learned yesterday Hong Kong is going to allow him to travel to Rome for the funeral. He left Wednesday afternoon. I think he's there now. So you see him arriving, but he's 93. So he's there for the funeral and to be around other cardinals, but he will not be voting in this conclave because he's past the age.
Big time vibes guy. I would love to hang out with Cardinal Zen.
Yeah, I'd love to interview
The things
him.
that he has seen must be unbelievable. But voting, back to voting, right? So,
well, not him, but there was a anonymous letter written from the Chinese Catholics about what they've had to endure
Heartbreaking.
in the last 6 years. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Totally heartbreaking. But voting. So the Cardinals come in. If they're under 80, there are 2 votes taken each day in the morning and the evening. They occupy from 2 to 3 hours each. Each elector is given a ballot card with the words "Eligo in summum pontificem." My Latin is a little bit suspect these days. I elect as a
to the highest.
supreme pontiff. There we go.
My Latin's not rusty.
Yeah, you still got it, Eric. I should just let you handle all the Latin. Under which they will write the name of their chosen nominate. So they are supposed to write legibly, but disguise their handwriting, which is interesting.
Ooh.
These ballots are then placed in a chalice on the altar while the cardinal recites the vow, "I call to witness the Lord Christ, who will be my judge, that I am electing the one whom, according to God, I think ought to be elected," but this is obviously in Latin. So, another rule, you cannot vote for yourself, which I don't know if anyone has thought about this.
I've done that.
I haven't voted for myself, but my brother voted for me. That was weird.
Yeah, I've never voted for
You've never voted for yourself.
I don't think so.
I
don't think.
At high school.
Every cleric on the planet has voted
for themselves. You cannot vote for yourself. When there's a close vote, and only then the ballot of the Pope elect, which, like all others, is distinguishable by a text of Scripture written on one of its outside folds, is open to make sure that he did not vote for himself. So they do check you to make sure that you do not vote for yourself. Also, fun fact we mentioned on this show, you do not actually have to be a priest. You don't have to be a bishop. You don't have to be a cardinal. You just have to be a baptized man. So Josh, again, in play. Someone did make an AI image of you as the
I think
Pope,
we
which
have an
is
AI
hysterical.
image of that.
Shout out to Carlos. I'm pretty sure I don't even know if we need
Carlos.
to put that up there. But yes, anyone technically could be. Not, however, if you're a heretic, a
Catholic man.
schismatic, or a notorious Simonist.
Right.
So, but no one other than a cardinal has been elected. So that would definitely break the mold.
Pope
But you do
J.D.
need
Vance, right?
you need a 2/3 majority in order to elect the Pope. So all the oh sweet, we got balloons. That's my version of white smoke. Okay, but interesting. So the white and black smoke. Are you guys familiar with the different smokes? It was not always white.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Tell me about it, Josh.
Well, the black smoke just says we haven't got we haven't elected anyone yet. We're burning these ballots and we're going to do another round.
Mm-hmm.
And then white smoke is letting them know, okay, yes, we have finally elected a new pope. But like in 2005, it was really kind of confusing because you look at it, and you're like,
I remember this.
Was that white or was that black? I can't
It's
tell.
kind of grayish, so we're not sure if we have.
And so that was like, oh, we're gonna make sure we fix this for next time. You know?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a little bit more discernible in 2013, but
Yeah,
I was
used
dying at
chemicals.
that, like the fact that it used to be like it came out a little gray. I was thinking of like a gender reveal. Have you ever seen videos of gender reveals?
Like gender reveal
where it's
fails.
like it's supposed to be blue or pink, and then someone accidentally put purple in there, and everyone just kind of looking around like, is this a boy or girl? So it's black. So when they eventually vote, if it's white, means we got a new pope. If it's black, we're still working.
another round of voting.
And if go back to the old school, they would just progressively make your food worse until white smoke came out of that chimney. Like, you need to figure it out. We need a pope. I have some fun facts, and maybe we'll hit this on Josh, see what you know, see what you don't know. So fun facts, and shout out to Rose, the producer, for finding these. She had a great morning. Special curtains. The cells of the cardinals are covered with cloth. They are purple if they are the last pope's creation, and green if not. So if they were made a cardinal by the last pope, you get a cool purple one. If you're green, you've been around for a while. So we have, interesting. So if it used to be the case that if after 3 days the cardinals did not arrive at a decision, they were to receive for the next 5 days only one dish at their noon and evening meal. So they cut off breakfast. If these 5 days elapsed without an election, only bread, wine, and water would be their fare. So we kind of covered that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Here we go. Can they refuse? They can say no, even if they reach a 2/3 majority and someone is chosen. Then the chosen men can deny. So if you were chosen,
You can decline.
Decline.
you
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
you're going to be the Pope. We all chose you. And he's like, no, thanks. I'm not going to do that. Has that ever been the case? Has anyone ever declined? Or would that
Who would
be
know?
secretive?
I mean, I can't imagine anyone would have said that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I have never heard of this happening. I know for a fact that there have been many men who've been offered by the Pope to be a bishop of a diocese, and many of them have said no. So that definitely happens.
I have an interesting fact.
Tell me.
So he's a great saint, actually, a very saintly bishop, which is one of the rarest birds in the College of Cardinals, is a saintly bishop.
Okay.
So apparently, this is according to ABC News. Like, they had a little fun facts thing this morning too. So maybe
All right.
not. We need to fact check this. Saint Charles Borromeo was elected to the papacy, and he declined.
Interesting. Okay. So we do have the case.
So if anyone wants,
One of my favorites. I named my
yeah, me too. I didn't know that about him until, thank you, ABC News. If it's true, I'm going to do some digging to
His
verify.
uncle was the Pope.
Yeah, he was.
Keep
Would
it
have been
in
a
the
little
family,
bit of
man.
nepotism there. So he said no, apparently.
Okay, so also, if anyone's familiar, so the other interesting thing, they're all locked in the room together to make the decision, but they keep two doctors in the room just in case they
Because
need,
they're kind
in
of
case someone dies. 'cause they're
long
all
in the
old.
tooth are the Cardinals. Yeah.
Right. So they have to swear to secrecy. Those two can't say anything. This one was one of my favorites. There is a 15-day rule instituted. Do you know why this 15-day rule was instituted?
What is the 15-day rule? What are you talking about?
So several cardinals got locked out of the conclave because they were late several conclaves in a row.
After the death of the Pope.
So after the Pope dies, you have to get back there within 15 days now is the rule. But they used to be like, all right, we got to lock you all in to make this decision. Certain cardinals, I'm not going to name names, maybe we're a little bit tardy a couple times in a row. Tough when it's a couple in a row. You think after the first one, you're like, all right, I'm going to be their P's and Q's. Although I guess travel must was probably much tougher back in the day.
Yeah.
So it used to be that you had 10 days to arrive. You try getting from America to Rome in the 1920s. That was what Rosie put in there. Now they actually do let cardinals in who arrive late, but they used to not. So you used to just show up to the door and be like, all right, tough luck. The Mayflower trip you took wasn't good enough.
As a dad, I respect that.
Yeah. Well, I guess they're the dad of an entire archdiocese. Are you familiar with the shortest
you forgot
conclave?
your lunch at home. Oh, too bad.
Josh, do you know the shortest conclave in modern history?
1 day. 1 vote.
The shortest conclave ever, 2 days with 3 ballots. Pope Pius the 12th in 1939.
Francis's conclave was not very long either. I believe it was also 3 ballots. It might have been like a different 2-day period. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah.
That was at least the 4th.
Was it a 4? All right, I'm going to look that up too.
And then, of course, do you know, first off, Habemus Papam, we have a new pope. Do you know who gets to announce that?
Isn't that the Secretary of State? No, it wasn't. It would have been. Yeah, I don't know. I forget. It's not
the senior cardinal deacon. And
the dean of the college.
Yeah. And there's a junior cardinal deacon whose sole responsibility is for letting people in and out. So his whole job is.
They told you they got to have people that do that kind of stuff,
right?
Because they can't have any support staff, because then people will be squawking.
That's awesome.
It's so crazy.
You were right, Josh. It was the 5th ballot was Francis.
And then to go back to the beginning here, has there ever been a good conclave movie made? Because there's many.
Yes, there has been actually. This one starred Brian Blessed, who those of you who know like Henry V, Shakespeare movies, kind of like Kenneth Branagh. Brian Blessed is always the really big guy with the big smile. But there was a movie. I'm going to get the year. I think it was 1973. Brian Blessed, and it is The Conclave. It was actually 2006. Sorry, 2006. The Conclave. It's kind of it's like a B-level movie. Like it's more like it's a stage play that they filmed the guys acting it out. But it's this really cool mix between just the absolute corruption that is endemic to Rome and always has been. I mean, there's scenes with some ladies that you can fast forward through. But to me, the really fascinating thing was the theme of how the Holy Spirit, and it encapsulated that Benedict quote, the Holy Spirit does not elect the Pope, but he does keep us from completely ruining the church. And that, to me, that's what that movie really communicated. And it was really well done. That the cast was phenomenal. So Conclave 2006. It was good. Do not watch it with your young children.
Yeah. Really, I mean, it's amazing.
There were no transgender popes in that movie either. So
there's a movie with a transgender pope?
That's the one that's out right now.
That's the one Rafe finds there.
Oh my gosh, bro.
The twist ending is that the Pope actually has XX chromosomes. Sorry,
no
spoiler
way,
alert.
bro.
Sorry, anyone who's not seen it.
I didn't even. So here's
you didn't know that?
How would you not know this?
Yeah, he was under a little.
How do you not know this?
Bubble of innocence.
You're getting a great authentic reaction here.
Yeah.
Because here's my general policy, and I hate to ruin this for people who are hoping that I watched it and gave a review. I tend to avoid movies I know are made by people that hate Catholics. I'm just like, why am I going to put myself through this? Like, I already know it's some Hollywood exec who has an axe to grind and does not care.
Oh,
could I even imagined that the end payoff was in the
Oh, dude, that's exactly my prediction on it. I was like,
there's no way you predicted that.
Yes.
The Pope's going to be female, and sure enough,
that is so awesome, dude. I almost is so awesome.
They elected some hermit from Kentucky. I'm sorry.
Oh, hey.
That would have been 2 on the nose.
Hey, no, that's insane.
While Tom recovers,
oh my gosh, what do we even?
Are you weeping?
Dude, that's
How
so
would you even
good.
say it, you know?
I can't even I couldn't
tranny.
even have imagined. I couldn't have even drawn that up. That's like Like someone would make that as a parody of what they would think a movie like this would be, but there's a legitimate Hollywood budget and executives being like, yeah, we're going to sign off millions of dollars on transgender
did.
Pope twist, bro.
Yeah.
How can we get a female Pope? We'll make everyone think it's
Just make it
not
in
a
a
girl.
movie.
Yeah.
Oh my
Right.
gosh.
Which is why it's that much worse that viewership of that particular movie went up 283% upon the death of Francis.
That is so awesome. That is.
You're like, great, you guys go watch that. Yeah, we'll just do our Catholic thing here.
Didn't Trump sick Mel Gibson on Hollywood to be like, clean it up, guys? Maybe that was before he put Mel over there, but
Yeah,
my
I think
goodness.
so. This was done before the election.
I don't know. Where do I even go from here? I know we have more stuff to talk about, but I don't think it gets better than that.
Although you said AI, I saw people doing, AI pictures of Mel Gibson as the Pope.
Oh,
Like, oh boy.
that would be wild.
Oh,
We would
man.
definitely get the old form of the Mass back. We
Would not be
definitely-
boring, I'll give you that.
Would not be boring.
No, it definitely would not be boring. Okay, but on to maybe more serious SCOTUS news.
Back
So
to
one
America.
thing that was interesting about this, and I want you to set the entire case. We saw some oral arguments, some KBJ clips went pretty viral. We actually interviewed the attorney that is on this case, William J. Hound, ADF, I believe, or is it Beckett Fund?
He's on Beckett Fund for Religious Liberty, and
Awesome.
he's one of the lawyers on the case. He's not the lawyer who was doing the oral arguments this week, but yes, he's senior
Right.
counsel.
And so, Rosie, if you want to throw that interview in the chat here, I did that a long time ago, about a year ago, and I was wondering where this was going to go. It's over Pride books in not just in schools, but in school curriculums.
Yeah.
And so it's literally reached the Supreme Court now at this point. If you could give a little background before we get into the clips that were going viral.
Yeah, sure.
What's going on
So 3 years ago now, and back in 2022, the Montgomery County Public Schools, this is in Maryland. It's the county adjacent to Washington, D.C. It's the largest public school district in the state of Maryland. They introduced several LGBTQ plus AI, what have you, inclusive children's books, such as Pride Puppy and Uncle Bobby's Wedding, into the English language arts curriculum. And that's really important. I'm going to tell you why in a minute. It was called by the plaintiffs the Pride Storybooks. Now, initially, the district allowed parents to opt their children out of the lessons that would involve the reading aloud of these books. But a year later, this is March 2023, citing administrative challenges and concerns about stigmatizing trans kids, the school district rescinded the opt-out option. Not only that, and actually, I'll just read the county's statement here. This is what the county put out to the parents. Students and families may not choose to opt out of engaging with any instructional materials other than family life and human sexuality units of instruction, which is specifically permitted by Maryland law. But remember, the Pride storybooks had been put into the English curriculum,
Right.
which no one may opt out of.
Sleight of hand.
Tricky sleight of hand.
Well done.
As such, teachers will not send home letters to inform families when inclusive books are read in the future. So they not only took away the opt-out option for these books, they also said, we're no longer even going to tell you if we're reading them to your kids at all. So you can imagine parents got a little upset. And this is a fascinating case because we have a coalition here of Muslim families, Catholic families, and Ukrainian Orthodox families coming together.
I think an
along with
Amish family too, right?
Amish family, a few secular families, but the primary plaintiffs listed are from those three communities. And you also have these really interesting visuals of families showing up in droves to school board meetings to protest this. And, 70% of them are wearing Muslim headscarves and hijab. And this is a very diverse.
That's a pretty
quote-unquote,
open secret, actually, that
yeah.
the Islamic community is probably even more radical on this stuff, and good for them than a lot of Catholics or Christians. Yeah.
Yeah. So the policy change prompted the parents to file the lawsuit, asserting that the lack of an opt-out option infringed upon their First Amendment rights. Hello, you think? And yeah, we did the interview with the lawyer a year ago when it was progressing through the state Supreme Court, and they just kept losing and losing. But the Supreme Court of the United States agreed to hear the case, and that's what we saw this week. We expect a ruling sometime in June when they start rolling out all the rulings from the year. So we don't have the answer yet, but it's looking pretty good for the parents. So the question before the court, before we get into the viral moments, do public schools burden parents' religious exercise when they compel elementary school children, and we're talking in this case kids as young as 3 years old, because these books go down to the preschool program, 3 years old, to participate in instruction on gender and sexuality against their parents' religious convictions and without notice or opportunity to opt out.
And to be abundantly clear, and I think this comes up in the oral arguments, we're talking about books that include leather and drag queens in elementary school curriculums, in the English curriculum that no one can opt out of. Just want to be abundantly clear.
And not only that, another thing that was really crazy where the district put out instructions to teachers. So this isn't a question of just having the books be on the shelves in the library for if a kid says, my parents are gay, the librarian can be like, here's a book about families like yours. It's not like that at all. This is actually required to be read aloud to children. And the teachers are instructed to respond to students in this way. So for example, this one instructional material or directive for teachers says, if a student says, quote, being gay, lesbian, queer, etc. is wrong and not allowed in my religion, school officials can respond by saying, quote, I understand that is what you believe, but not everyone believes that. We don't have to understand or support a person's identity to treat them with respect and kindness. Another instruction to teachers, this is kindergarten teachers. If a child come in and says, well, a girl can only like boys because she's a girl, then the teacher should say, the teacher should, quote, disrupt the child's either or thinking by saying something like, quote, actually, people of any gender can like whoever they like. How do you think your words would make the, quote, main characters feel if you said something like that to them?
Who's sick and tired of these perverts teaching our kids?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I can't help but laugh. Like the Bible, maybe the authoritative historical underpinning of Western thought, it was taught up until the 1600s in America. Or sorry, not 1600s, 1960s.
1960s,
And then all of a sudden it got out. Why this logic is hilarious to me. Like, let's go back to that quote again. Where is that, Erica? Basically like, oh, I know that you don't believe this, but not everyone believes this.
Thinks that, right?
Not everyone thinks that. I'm like, well, what about the Bible? Like, we've just created a secular religion that everyone has to believe in, which is the great irony of removing the Bible from our country, from a Christian country. And now we've created a secular religion that we can punish people if they don't have total fealty to. And nothing says this better than Ketanji Brown Jackson. I have to show this clip. I've laughed at it so many times. This logic is insane. And this is a Supreme Court justice of the United States of America. Here's what she had to say on it.
Choose to put their kid elsewhere. You don't have to send your kid to public school. I'm struggling to see how it burdens a parent's religious exercise if the school teaches something that the parent disagrees with. You have a choice. You can homeschool them.
What are we talking about?
First of all, the left has been against parents homeschooling for the last 50 years. Second of all, there were attempts to prevent people from even going to private schools. Like the Oregon passed that law in the, the 1920s. So like this, again, she drives me insane. This woman should be off the court. She should be impeached. She doesn't even know what a woman is.
And we only recently heard her thoughts on the Masterpiece Cake Shop case, right? Where for her, it was you need to bake the cake, right? Bake the cake for the gay couple, no matter if it's against your beliefs or not. And now she's like, you don't have to shop at the public school. You could go somewhere else. So why couldn't the gay couple go to a different cake shop?
I don't pay taxes to bakeries.
I know.
What are we talking about here?
Right. A public school is a benefit that these parents are paying for. They should not be told, oh, well, you can continue to give us your tax dollars and you can just go somewhere else. Not everyone can homeschool. How many times have we been berated as homeschoolers who say things like, you really should consider homeschooling your kids. And people say, oh, not everyone can homeschool. So we need to regulate the homeschoolers up the wazoo and we need to pour all of our tax dollars into these failed public schools. And now they're like, oh, you can just homeschool.
Can you name another example, ex progressive policy in which this logic would apply? You don't like it, go do something else. There isn't. There truly is not one.
I mean, they talk about abortion like that. They're like, you don't like abortion, don't
get one. Right,
like,
but
I don't want to pay for them either.
This logic is, I actually think like most of the Supreme Court, and you'll see it in the arguments too, they don't say to her face like, this is a terrible argument. Like, how did you get here? Basically,
she is an idiot.
Yeah, I mean,
She's an idiot. I mean, they're not sending her best. Jackson and Sotomayor are both idiots. Now, Elena Kagan, I disagree with her on so many things, but Justice Kagan is actually not an idiot.
No,
like if
smart.
we could have, and in some ways, maybe it's better that we have these two dunces on there. They say the dumbest things, and the conservative justices will be like, "Really? Like this is what you guys think?"
Yeah.
I mean, clean up aisle 3. I mean, it's so stupid.
Sotomayor had a really interesting exchange with Samuel Alito as they tried to give a literary analysis of Uncle Bobby's wedding. And Sotomayor, she's looking at the book and she's like, I don't understand. Is looking at two men getting married, is that the religious objection? And she goes, the most they're doing here is holding hands. Like, are you really that daft? I mean, book is the story of how this little child goes to her uncle's same-sex marriage. It is a same-sex marriage, and is disturbed by it. And then how progressively through the book, different adults talk to the child and disabuse her of the notion that this is somehow weird or wrong, or it's going to hurt her someday. And it's an indoctrination book. It's telling kids who might have reservations because of what their parents have taught them about this sort of arrangement, this wedding, this gay wedding, that eventually you have to come around to the right point of view about it and accept it, because Uncle Bobby is your sweet uncle who loves you. I'm
just imagining, what if conservatives used children's books to indoctrinate, the parent, every parent's, all the kids in the school district. I mean, like, here, look, Bobby's going to go hunting, and he loves guns. The guns are important. We love our Second Amendment. The liberals would lose their minds. They would lay an egg. They would squawk so loud. And I guess we could just have one of our Supreme Court justices go, well, I guess you could just homeschool your kids if you don't want your 3-year-old exposed to how guns should be everyone's right.
Yeah, let's teach the Bible in school. Oh, you don't like it? Go homeschool.
Right. That was never, no, it's take the Bible out of school, take the 10 Commandments out of the school.
And dare I say that following the tenets and teachings of Jesus Christ and the foundation of Western society might actually have a positive impact on children.
I understand, but I was even using another religious example.
Right. No, I think this is but you know what I say that? Because this is a religious question. I think that by creating a power vacuum for some reason, just completely removing any mention of God, which the desire for humanity to understand how they relate, how their soul relates, their ultimate end, who did all this, who started all this. These are foundational educational questions, education properly understood. And so first off, it was completely unnatural to just remove any attempt for understanding of that. Say philosophy has been almost completely removed. Now they're just like, all right, let's just teach Marx.
It's not even just removing that. It's the next step, which is like the idea of what education was for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years.
Still is
moral formation. It's not, and
right.
The last 60 years, the last 100 years, whatever, Dewey and all those educational experts, they just rip that out of it. It's like, no, it's learning stuff. That's all education is learning stuff. Whether it's memorizing it and belching it back out, but they removed any kind of, passing on of the ethics and morals of a society. Like, no, you're supposed to be actually forming people in proper moral education. It's supposed to be moral formation.
Right.
It's not just learning.
Right. It's a lie to say that we can have, it's kind of like saying the media can be objective, right? It's like the Walter Cronkite lie, but applied to the classroom. You can't have an amoral education. You can get away with it for a little bit with like mathematics and hard sciences, but not forever. Witness the 2 + 2 is not always 4 movement and racist math phenomena that we saw coming out of the George Floyd, like post George Floyd protests. This is all formation has a moral component. Even your math teacher is going to have, he's an example to your students, how he lives his life, the comments he makes, kindness, formation, holding you accountable for your work that you're supposed to hand in, how he grades tests. I mean, all of this is moral formation. And the reality is that I think this case brings to the fore the fact that in this country we have an abject divide in two worldviews that have come to clash here. And the answer is, I mean, one of them has to win out. You can't have this neutral ground in some ways. And so I do think, the lawyer or the justices brought up, the liberal justices, Sotomayor and KVJ brought up, well, eventually you're going to want these books off the shelves, aren't you? And that's not what the parents are asking. So, strict scrutiny, looking at exactly what this case is about. It is just about, do parents have the right to opt out? But eventually, down the road, yes, that should be a question. Should we even have instruction in sexual ethics for kindergartners? And I think the answer has to be no eventually. But that was not what was at question here. For now, I will take parental rights. But eventually, we've got to fight back on this. Like,
it's like a tier 1, tier 2 situation. Like
Exactly.
There's a tier 1 conversation that we just had here.
Mm-hmm.
Tier 2 is basically like, should people be able to show sex stuff to my third grader, which is insane. But there's a real
third grader, not even third grader, 3-year-old.
right. It's
so outrageous. And then you get
mind-boggling.
you could just homeschool. What?
Yeah.
Yeah, the other option would be that some of these school board members could be put in handcuffs for being
For grooming
absolute total
children.
perverts.
Yeah.
Aren't there laws against exposing kids to like sex? Seems like there should be.
Yeah, for real. All right, good news section before we get to culture block. What do we got here?
All right, what do we got? I'm going to go with, we have great news coming out of Colorado. Was this Colorado? I have to pull it up. Sorry, guys, my tabs. Yes, Boulder, Colorado abortion clinic is closing after 50 years. And we've talked about abortion clinics closing in the great city of Petoskey, of course, thanks to the Mercer clan and their prayers for years and years. But Boulder, Colorado, this one's special because this particular abortion clinic was known for the last 50 years for performing late-term abortions. That is after 30 weeks gestation.
Hey, Erica.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, wait. You might be back a little bit. I don't know if your fan's going crazy on your laptop or something, but you're underwater.
We
Okay.
weren't hearing you, for a little bit.
All right,
Yeah,
you
go ahead,
cover the
start that up
story.
again.
Here we go.
No, I think you're good now. You can get going again.
All right, am I good?
Yep.
I'm going again. You can't stop me.
Nope.
All right. So the Colorado abortion facility abortionist Warren Hearn retired in January and said that the facility would continue, but now they have announced its closure. It is estimated that in his time there, he killed 42,000 unborn children, and primarily in late-term abortions. This was a clinic that women would go to from all over the country, and it was actually exposed. There was a sting operation where an activist, kind of a live action type thing, but with Students for Life, she called in, recorded the conversation, presented herself as 30 weeks pregnant, and they said, absolutely, we can do that. And that the chilling thing about this recording was that the woman on the phone, I don't know if she was a nurse or a receptionist, the woman who was scheduling the late-term abortion for the undercover journalist, kept referring to the child as a baby, kept referring to the fact that the baby would not feel any pain, kept telling the mother that, yes, fully developed, fully intact, we will, even if it's healthy, we can still do it. We can still kill the child. It was absolutely demonic and twisted. And another one bites the dust. And thank God, this was great news. It is closing its doors for good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Josh, I don't know. Sure is good.
I meant this for the.
All right. I was going to say, I think you're misunderstanding good news again. Hey, but I will say, and Josh, your brainchild. So we actually, I want to put everyone on this. So if you listen to the Loopcast but don't get the Loop, it's definitely time to get the Loop. Partially because we actually have special Vatican coverage. So we've been having these Vatican. First off, I mean, the Loop morning newsletter gets you everything you need. Politics, news, church stuff, uplift at the end. That comes out every morning. But we also have exclusive Vatican coverage, which I actually have been very much enjoying. But I'd highly recommend, go ahead, catholicvote.org/getloop. Go ahead, check that out. It's been one of my new favorite things coming out of Catholic Vote, is our exclusive coverage of the Vatican. Josh, you're going to be over there in Rome, right?
That's right. I leave a week from tomorrow.
Wow,
Woo!
it's exciting times. Can I be in your suitcase or something?
Yeah, you probably could fit.
You,
I think I could try. I'll get over there however got to get over there, man. I'm still yet to be
That's
to
right.
Italy.
We
Maybe
will.
one
oh, you
day.
got a new puppy. Yeah, his name is Pogo.
Just like feed me some crackers or something. Just leave me some crackers. I'll be fine.
You could be his support animal. Yeah.
Okay, so into the refinery now. Eric, I want to make sure we get to this because I've seen it buzzed around. So there's a $5,000 baby bonus floated around as a potential solution to the fertility crisis in America.
Yeah.
One thing I will say before you get into it, I saw someone say that the peak American fertility rate was actually 18 years ago. And so the graduating class of high school will actually be the largest this year. So this year's
Hit the
graduating class of high school kids will be the highest graduating class, so they'll just continually decline as
For
we're
at
not
least 18
replacing.
years.
So I thought that was kind of interesting, but I think solutions are needed. So what's going on with
The most
this New York
obvious
Times
solution
article?
would be, more abortion clinics closing down. Like, how about we
That
stop
could-
killing
That would help.
babies? That would be the.
That
If
would
we did
help.
Hello.
4,000 babies a day, that would be a lot more kids. Yeah, for
Yep.
sure. Yeah, so the New York Times pulled this out this week, and these are some key proposals that are being put before the Trump administration. And Trump did campaign on, he notices, he acknowledges that there's a demographic crisis. He wants to find ways to encourage people to have more babies. And much has been said about how this is not only a fertility, a baby making crisis, right? We're also talking about it's really a marriage crisis. The people
Yeah.
are not forming marriages.
Tier 1, Tier 2 again. Yeah.
Exactly. Tier 1, Tier 2. And it's also a health issue. I mean, guys, the sperm count for a male in like 1973 was like 109, and today it's like 21 for whatever that sample is. And
Yeah,
that
so
is
the thoughts on
crazy. It was
that,
in the article.
and the thoughts on that are either like microplastics or
We just don't know because nobody
Interesting.
studied sperm count. So let's get it on, guys. Okay. Oh, wait.
this has been one special edition of the LOOPcast today,
I'm
man.
sorry. I had to get that out there.
Go
Okay.
for it, Erica.
A few key proposals. We are considering apparently a $5,000 baby bonus. I'm like 3 years too late for this. A one-time payment to mothers upon childbirth intended to incentivize higher birth rates. Okay, we've tried this in Scandinavia to like no avail, but I'd take it. I would
Yeah.
take the 5,000. We've also floated the idea of a Fulbright scholarship allocation, reserving 30% of Fulbright scholarships for people who are married or have children. Interesting thought there.
That is interesting.
This one, the New York Times loved. You can imagine this: menstrual education programs. Probably also just known as like Creighton Method NFP, like women getting to know.
This is underrated.
themselves.
This is actually big time underrated.
And I'm like, how are we not just doing this in general for women? Because we should probably know something about our menstrual cycles, and women just don't know when they're fertile and when
I can
they're
tell you
not.
what, I can tell you, not as speaking as a woman myself, but it's like every young girl going to a doctor's office at like age 13,
Mhm.
they have acne, they have unrelated problem, and birth control is prescribed as a panacea. And then you don't have obviously a natural cycle if you're on those
Well,
hormones.
Or
And
worse,
then-
they have terrible periods, because they have beginning endometriosis or some real
Right.
issue with their reproductive system. And it's like, oh, well, if we just give you a birth control pill, you won't feel these symptoms anymore. And sure enough, then
So
years
there's
later-
that, but then there's
Right.
also like, okay, so you pair that with almost every young girl going to doctor's office, they're getting that. But even if they're religious, a lot of times like their parents, NFP wasn't as well known. These Creighton method, all these other methods aren't taught. So it's like an uncomfortable conversation for a mother to have with a daughter. So often it doesn't happen. And so you just kind of, if you're of like the religious variety, or maybe you didn't do birth control, but still haven't gotten great education on how do you actually conceive a child, it's kind of like a 1-2 punch that I feel like this is super underrated. And I think
Yeah,
it's
it is
very
very
empowering
underrated.
and is a big part of the Maha movement properly understood is like
Yeah.
your menstrual cycle is actually very healthy and intentional and operated a certain way for hundreds, if not thousands of years
well, for
until
all of
the
human history.
until the dawn of, all these chemical problems that we're seeing. So
Right.
I think understanding that, embracing that is actually great for your health, because a lot of the root causes of infertility are actually because there's something else going on, say like a thyroid thing or endometriosis or whatever. It's not actually just
Right.
because you get off the pill and you can just get after it. So
Right. I'm all for that one. But the one I like most, because my love language is words of affirmation, the National Medal of Motherhood. An award proposed for women who have 6 or more children, reminiscent of historical programs in authoritarian regimes. That's a direct quote. And of course, you're like, Hitler wanted women.
I did have to say that was the first that came to
too.
mind. Was that?
Yeah,
Hitler gave the
it
medals,
actually, yeah. I'm like, that's probably.
Erica, you'd get a sweet medal.
You know,
though.
I would
Congrats.
get a sweet medal. Lori Mercer would get a sweet
Yes,
medal.
she would. She would deserve it too. You know, in addition to political leadership and political solutions or whatever, I think we should also just, you know, let's not leave our own church members off the hook. There is actually the patriarch of Georgia who made the decision back in 2008 that he was going to personally baptize the third and every child after that of any couple. So if you have a third child, he's going to come and baptize your child and be the godfather. Okay? And so now he's done this 69 different times so far where he's done a mass baptism, and he became the godfather of another 1,200 children last summer. He's been doing this, you know, since 2008. I mean, this is awesome. And so again, the pledge he's made is that he will baptize the third and all subsequent children of married parents, obviously, to try to help improve demographics.
And
So
to be abundantly clear, not the Bulldogs. We're talking about the country of Georgia.
Of Georgia,
Yes.
right.
Got
Like,
it. Okay. It's not just some
little confusing
sweet
there.
Southern pastor.
Everyone's going to move to Atlanta suburbs. They're like, I want that one. Yeah.
Other Georgia.
Other Georgia. Yes, the country of Georgia.
This patriarch, that's 47,000 children we're talking about since 2008.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
Praise God. What a legacy to bring before the throne of Jesus on your judgment day. That would be
I
great.
will. I don't know. So this
Instead of having, let's say, the patriarch of the Latin rite who's made comments about, you know,
breeding like rabbits.
right.
yes.
Just call me a rabbit.
on the birth rate problem in general.
Maybe we should. The next pope can give out little medallions with a rabbit on it, like
No, yeah.
and like in a
You
positive
have
way.
survived.
Episode is
Kind
wild.
of just turn it around, you know. Make it a
episode
badge
is
of
wild.
honor. I should
This
wear
is-
a little rabbit thing.
This is a
Yeah.
Friday episode, but I will say, so just think about these proposals as someone who's, you know, maybe in prime child rearing age. I'm not going to rear them myself, but hopefully I bring them up.
Bearing. No, you're going to rear them, dear.
Oh, I rear
You're
them?
gonna-
Okay,
you're gonna
good.
bear them. You're
Not clear in the wording there. I will say, and I just talked to some other young Catholic dads who are totally in the trenches, right? Like I live in a constant Twilight Zone of babies and toddlers, and it's insane. I never sleep. That being said, my wife is fantastic. She's the love of my life, and I cannot thank her enough. It's legitimately challenging for myself, who I would, you know, praise be to God. I love doing this program. Catholic vote's been very good to my family. I feel like I live like a pretty middle-class existence, and just had my second child. It's hard. I know I'm not going to sugarcoat. It's hard physically just to do it, but in terms of I'm looking at our finances, the cost of healthcare, like my wife works, she has her own business, and the only way we can do our current living accommodation is because both of us work in some capacity. We would not be able to live the lifestyle we live right now if we did not both do that. But the problem is like, okay, we were in a small apartment before, and we need the space to start having more kids, and so What?
Wouldn't it be nice if you have 4 kids or more, you wouldn't have to pay any Social Security taxes because you've done your share.
yeah.
You added 4.
I'm personally all for
100%.
that. Like I think there's the spiritual decay element, right? That people just like you're saying in Sweden, they gave out these $5,000, it didn't actually help the birth rate. But I think that the continue through policy incentivizing having more children would actually help at least the people that are willing to have more children. And so maybe it's not like everyone has a ton of kids, but like I'm talking to these guys who are like, I've always thought I'd have a big family, very open to life, really feel committed, that want to do it. But legitimately, I'm sitting down and having finance discussions, and we have 2-3 kids. It's like, how do we go from 3 to 6? Think about the healthcare, think about the space, think about, because transparently, inflation has just been horrific. I mean, our grocery bills are much more expensive than they were before. Housing is basically untenable right now. There's no way. There's just no opportunity for me at my age right now to buy a home or even think about that. The amount of debt people are leaving college with, which I'm all for the trades, right? I listened to a great episode of Mike Rowe talking about his grant. go check that out to go get people into the trades. And I'm like, who knows? One day I'd actually be open to something like that. But because it's a public good for people to go to college, most people went to college, still have college debt. I still have college debt. Not personally, but my wife does, that we're paying off. So I think all of the current milieu basically of circumstances are not making it easy for people who actually want to have more kids, let alone trying to convince the people who already were not going to anyway to have kids. So I think this actually, people laugh, but this would be huge for, say, like that $5,000 payment. That's a hospital bill for my last child. I'm no longer in debt to the hospital. So I'm actually all for, I'm not poo-pooing the people that are down on this. I think this would be huge for people that actually want to have kids.
Yeah, I think that it has to be a multi-pronged approach, because the reality is that the demographic decline, the depopulation of countries, which is happening real time now, especially in the West, it is going to have. I don't think anyone until Trump and, well, J.D. Vance actually before him on the Senate floor really grappled with this at a national level and acknowledged that this is going to be disastrous. And we're facing it in the next 50 years. It's going to happen and start to have effects. It has to be multi-pronged approach. What you're saying, Pogo, are these policies that will encourage people who already want to have children to have just one more or just two more. The levels of depopulation we're looking at, that would make an enormous difference, right? Even to have one more child, to have one more could have massive societal implications. So absolutely, I think that we can poo-poo these kinds of incentives, but we need all stops out. So this kind of thing absolutely should take place. I think the no Social Security taxing for people who have a certain number of children. In Hungary, they just rolled out no income tax for women who have a certain number of children. And that's really important. At the same time, we have to find ways to help. We have a record percentage of Gen Z women, especially, who are saying they never want to have children. They simply don't want to even get into the business of baby making. And we're looking at like 25-30% of 18 to 22-year-olds.
I think, though, I understand that. I mean, like Gen X, we grew up with a lot of latchkey homes, a lot of moms working outside of the house, my mother included, a lot of people ravaged by divorce, families by divorce. And then you get this big movement starting in the 1990s, basically environmentalism as a way to try to torment people into thinking that all we are is people who consume resources, and that humans are a scourge and the planet is going to run out. And, and so the thought was, actually, I'm a better person if I don't have create more mouths to feed. Right. And again, it's kind of what I mentioned in the last Loopcast. It used to be that, not just farmers. We think about it more with farming. Like, okay, so you have children, more children help out with the farm. And so everyone got it. Okay, well, now we've moved into the city, and now it's just like, well, now I need more car seats. Now I need a bigger car. Now I need a bigger house. And children aren't really adding to the family bottom line. They're only on the negative side.
Right. And
so we're still kind of grappling with how to understand that. Now in Israel, they're one of the wealthiest countries in the world, and yet they don't have a fertility problem. And it's because culturally they have embraced a very pro-baby mindset. Tim Carney talks about this in his book, Family Unfriendly. I did an interview. Thank you, Rosie, for posting that in the chat, the link to it. I didn't get into, I don't think, Israel's much in the interview, but I would recommend people buying the book too, Family Unfriendly. And the reason why in Israel they're able to push back at this mentality, because you only think about kids as, well, one or two kids, that feels great, and I like that, but why would I have 3 or 4 kids? It's just much more money out the door, right? Israel's able to push back against this. Culturally they say, have 6 to make up for the 6. Have 6 children to make up for the fact that 6 million of the Jews were exterminated in the Holocaust. Because look, there is a deep-seated Jewish feeling that at the end of the day we're on our own, and at any time a country could turn against us, and we need to make sure we promulgate our culture. Now, I don't want to get into anything else. I'm saying we need to have a mentality here in the United States that we want to perpetuate our own people, our own culture, our own way of life. I'm proud to be Catholic. I'm proud to be an American. I want more Catholics. I want more Americans.
Yeah.
I love my husband, and I think there should be more people like him in the world. Like, that's a big thing for me. And I think what you're putting your finger on there, Josh, is that childbearing over the last 150 years, so over the last 150 years, we've seen sort of the devaluing monetarily, like to speak very frankly, of having more children, right? It's become the cost has gone up and the cultural value of children has gone down. And there's a lot of factors there. And so Catherine Pakaluk talks about this in her book, Hannah's Children, the need to examine populations where that hasn't happened. And what she found when she's talking to women who have 5 or more children is that the worldview that the women who choose to have more children provides them a rationale that overcomes and outweighs that economic calculus that has
Which is strong.
transformed, which is very strong, right? And the answer, of course, is, I mean, from a Catholic point of view, the word would be evangelization, that we need to help convict our society that it is good to have more children. We have a great country. We have a beautiful faith and more souls to glorify God for all eternity, which every time I get pregnant, this really sweet grandpa over the way, he's like, another Ahern soul to glorify God for all eternity. I'm like, oh, that's great.
awesome.
It's a great way of putting it. But our culture is so starved for that of course the economic calculation outweighs, we don't have a rich rationale for having more humans.
And underrated too as well. Peggy in the chat was talking about the cost for adoption are completely out of control.
Out of control.
Completely. $25,000 to adopt a kid. I'm like, these are kids that need to be taken care of sensibly. All great points. Shout out to all the families in the chat. Seriously. I feel like I'm just really going through it these days with the toddler and the baby. So I have so much respect for both of you guys and people.
You're in the thick of it, Pogo.
Have big families, and maybe
don't
we'll
worry,
figure it out.
It'll get a little bit harder before it gets easier.
Yep. Someone said
I think it was like, okay, so you have 2 right now. You're gonna, and then if God blesses you,
man defense
to
zone defense.
You move, to zone defense.
Yep.
But then 4, it's like, oh my gosh. But then, like, as I was talking about with my wife, I'm like, basically we just keep having a baby and a young toddler and an older toddler, and we just suddenly get a 5-year-old. Like, that's really what you're getting.
Yeah, think of it that way.
That's how I like to think of it.
Yeah, you're just it's like the NFL draft, you know. You get
and once the
build
oldest hits 8, to me, the oldest hitting 8 was like everything just transformed, because suddenly, like, they could get their own snacks, they can scramble the eggs, they can get a diaper if you need it. I mean, it was like
drive the other kids to school, whatever.
Yeah, I was. I mean, I did grow up in New Hampshire, so
yeah, true. Josh is in Petoskey, anything goes. But Erica, I don't think the standard for your children is a fair standard for everyone else. I think your children are
No, okay, I hate it when people say that. It's not. It's true.
Don't worry, we'll bring on Todd to say that Erica's not saint.
She's not special. Yeah.
No, Todd would call her a saint. Todd's a legend.
No, he would not. Todd would be the first person to say no. She's
okay, hey, we got to hit Twilight Zone before we get out of here. Josh.
Okay, so when Pope John Paul II died in 2005, CBS recognized and noted that 500,000 pilgrims went to go visit his grave. So what happened this time with the Pope, death of Pope Francis? Let's listen to the CBS, secular news media. What do you think they're going to say?
Around me, this exact spot was jam-packed with people last night, lining up to see the body of Pope Francis lying in state inside of St. Peter's Basilica. But right now, it's really thinned out. There's no line around me whatsoever, and the numbers reflect that. According to the Vatican, 50,000 people walked by the body of Pope Francis in the first 24 hours. It sounds impressive, but you compare that to John Paul II when he died, and it was 10 times that number. 500,000 people walked by John Paul II to see his body in the first 24 hours. Now, what does that say? Why aren't as many people coming? You can wonder why. I mean, John Paul II was this victorious pope, seen as being a conqueror of communism. Also, he was Polish, and so many of his supporters were from nearby Poland. They could come here by bus, whereas Francis, he was Argentinian, and he was serving people in the periphery, and these are people who, by very definition, are further away, and it's harder for them to come out here. There are a lot of reasons to suspect why this might be the case. But the big question is, what kind of impact is it going to have on the conclave? That's the process by which cardinals decide who the next pope is going to be. Are they going to look around at these numbers and the fact that people just aren't lining up in the same way to see Pope Francis as they did for John Paul II? John Paul II was a conservative Catholic. Francis was seen as being more progressive.
This is
Is
CBS?
this going to be seen as a rebuke of
yeah.
his policies?
Whoa.
Are they going to look at the lack of crowds here and think maybe it's time for a change? Maybe it's time that the church is changing and therefore we as cardinals need to make a shift as well. Only time will tell.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
How about that?
Wow.
Like that.
From
I thought
CBS.
when I first watched this, he wasn't going to get into that kind of stuff. You know, like the Argentina. I mean, that's not nothing. It is true that Poland is closer than Argentina, but it's like,
Yeah.
look, I had friends here in the United States. As soon as John Paul died, they got on an
Yeah.
airplane and they flew to go see his gravesite. So I have not heard anybody that would do it, except for, you know, I'm sure James Martin did, but I mean, just no one. I mean, like the average Joes aren't going to go.
Yeah. James Martin actually sat down for an interview with Ross Douthat about it.
Very
He
interesting.
was not on. It was very interesting. We're going to get into that next week for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was
Ross
fascinating.
definitely. I appreciated that Ross didn't let
I
him
did
off the
too.
hook on a couple things. He definitely tried to pin him down. It was cordial, but
I haven't listened to that one yet, but I've listened to the other ones that his new Interesting Times podcast. I mean, I'm
so
not going to agree
fun.
with Ross and everything, but I thought that's a podcast people should listen to. It's very intriguing. Good questions. He asks good questions.
yeah.
He does. He does.
Is there? Sorry, before we get to yours, any other do you agree with the implication that it's going to affect the Cardinals?
My point would be that in calculating who they should vote for, each of these cardinals are going to have a basket of different ideas, impulses, and reflections. And so if Francis has a very meager crowd, is that going to play a factor? It probably will. I mean, it's not like it's going to be decisive. But like again, you know, like the fact that he cracked down so hard on the Latin Mass, the fact that the African bishops in Mass said thumbs down on fiducia supplicans, the blessing of same-sex couples, which technically is not a couple. All that stuff, these are all factors into saying, maybe the next guy could be a little more conservative. So,
Interesting.
Really interesting.
I don't know, but then I feel like I could also see a world in which they're just like, nah, screw you, we're going to double down.
I know some church prelates that would just say that. They're like, "Oh,
Right.
you didn't like him? Fine."
Like, how many of them are like,
Yeah,
even-
Blaise Supich,
They're human too.
he's
right?
horrible.
But like
Yeah.
the position of cardinal, you're not. How many of them are like politician-esque, like reading the winds of what like, you know what I mean? Like they're kind of in a position of power regardless. It doesn't
Well,
matter.
I mean,
I think they're pretty political.
I mean, if there's anything that they're equipped at, it would be that. Yeah, like reading the tea leaves. Are you kidding me? Yeah, for sure.
Yes, this actually segues very nicely into my Twilight Zone. One of our
Go for it, Erica.
one of our papabile, I can't say it, but one
Oh,
of the
gosh.
the news media loves to put this guy up, Cardinal Tagle from the Philippines,
This is
as
bad.
a potential next pope. And speaking of like, will he be more conservative? He's seen as a more liberal option that the
Yeah,
Cardinals
very
could go
liberal.
with. Yeah. And wouldn't it be cool to have the first pope from Asia? And it turns out he did an audition for chanting in St. Peter's, and he has a pretty good voice. Can we go ahead and
Do we
run the
have to?
tape there? We do. This is my Twilight Zone. You have to listen to it.
Okay, wait. Why is it not sharing here?
Oh,
Wait, I got it.
I had such a good build up for it too, Pogo.
Yeah, you did a great job.
Thank you.
Imagine all the people sharing all the world.
They didn't do auto tune. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, that's,
I gotta give him credit. Pretty good
I mean,
voice.
Really good
Asians
voice.
do love karaoke.
that I mean, liturgical crimes are still war crimes. That is just horrible. Like, what in the world? Like,
Did you see the community note though?
No.
Said
community note.
Cardinal Tagle sang an altered and shortened version of this song, which doesn't include anything against religion, heaven, Christ, etc. There is a crucifix in the background. Where did he do this?
It was at a youth rally, I believe, in the Philippines. And of course, like, you want to reach out to the youth, the young people who weren't even born until 20 years after this song came out. But,
Yeah.
I
I think it's
Spirit of
time
God
to shelve
for
this
Two,
one.
very
I think it's just
strong.
time to put this one on the shelf. Imagine we're just done with it. I'd say
Yeah.
as a
Hopefully
We should
that just
euthanize this song.
Yeah, we should definitely.
Give it a
only-
death with dignity.
I think the death penalty. I think a firing squad for this song would be more appropriate than any death with dignity. It deserves no dignity. Bye bye,
Amen, sister.
John
I'm
Lennon.
with you.
Imagine.
All right. So, in the spirit of conclave and Catholicism, one of my new favorite hit pieces on JD Vance. I typically really savor these because they're all ridiculous. But JD Vance hit piece from the Daily Beast. JD Vance is being slammed online after he broke one of the most notorious Vatican rules during the Easter weekend visit. Are you guys familiar with the rule that he broke?
No,
Not
invite
supposed
me.
to shake the hand, right?
He took a picture in the Sistine Chapel. He showed young Vance. Let me share this instead. Showed Vance holding his young son as the two gazed up at the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Obviously, for those unaware, you're not supposed to take pictures of the ceiling. And so they wrote a long, winding hit piece on him.
Maybe that's what did Francis in.
And let's
shock.
see, you get the correction pretty quickly. Right here in the Twitter. It is a source close to the situation told the Daily Beast that the Vatican gave special permission for the photographer in question to take pictures inside the Sistine Chapel.
Oh my God.
Ruh-roh.
That's so bad.
It seems like you probably should have, maybe you wouldn't have an article if it's odd. This is even a correct, is this a correction or I don't know what that would be. It's like, just don't write the article then. That's the,
Yeah, that would be the thing.
Yeah. My other one, more fun one, a little bit more conspiracy theory. I don't know what is going on with Joe Biden right now. I think about him sometimes, and when I do, I get sad.
Yeah.
But here's a picture of Joe Biden from his account. This is from his account. I'm not a graphic design professional.
No.
What's going on with his hand here? This doesn't look natural. He's in a full suit, but the rest of the family's kind of casual. It looks photoshopped, right? It was an Easter message. This looks photoshopped. And so I'm already kind of like, what's going on with Joe Biden here from his account? And then you get this picture of him walking on a mountain range in the same suit and tie, and his legs, it looks like he hasn't done leg day ever in his entire life, but it's got the RFK Jr. steroid regimen on the top. This can't be real. Are they messing with us?
Is Joe Biden even alive?
This was his Earth Day post, and everyone's like, wait, but he's got a handkerchief in his pocket. And I'm like, I zoom in on that. That looks fake too. You're telling me you can't Photoshop a handkerchief into someone's pocket? I don't know what game they're playing on Joe Biden's account. I don't know if he's alive. I don't know if they're messing
After
with us.
revenge, I guess.
Maybe. And then I did see a book got released about the kind of behind the scenes of Biden, Obama, and Kamala, and it was not good.
Ooh.
It was nasty. I think that relationship is kind of over. And I kind of don't blame him in a way, but I'm like, why are we doing this to Joe Biden? I need to check the account. Have we done any?
Oh
No,
my
it's
God.
okay. We got an old one. It's I mean, guys, this is Photoshop. There's no way
man.
this is real.
Oh,
I
that
feel
is-
bad. Who's doing this to him? Like, you just need to. This is like
probably
a meme.
Jill. I'm
I
guessing.
mean, I don't
Jill.
know how much pity I'm going to give to that guy. Sorry.
Everyone, this is just as altered as his entire campaign, second time around. I mean, nothing's real about. I almost feel bad for him. Just like
It's
let
almost
him,
like they're lying.
I know. Just let him finish out with dignity and just hang out with the. I mean, that's
Get the man a
Photoshop.
priest.
I'm
Jill, let
standing
him have a
behind it.
priest.
Photoshopped. There's no way this is real. I don't know what game's playing, but that was my Twilight Zone. Great week of Loopcast, guys. Thank you guys for joining live. If you want to support the show, go check out the Champions Club. It's the best way to support us, catholicvote.org/champions. Thank you to all our champions today live in the chat. If you guys got more questions for us, I feel like this is a good time to ask for them. Go ahead and shoot those in. I've been responding to some of the emails. Appreciate the questions and comments. So thank you for sending those along. If you want to support the show, I did two interviews this week. And Josh coughed a little on Israel. Basically, I'll preface this one as a preface in the monologue. I'm frustrated with the Israel-Palestine debate in general as an American Catholic. And I went and talked to this guy, Jason Jones. He's the president of the Vulnerable Peoples Project. And by all accounts, an incredible man. He was doing stuff for religious minorities and people in Afghanistan, Christians in Afghanistan, Christians in Africa, Christians in Hawaii when all that struck. I mean, this is a guy who's just completely devoted his life to serving the vulnerable. He's Catholic. He's also been working in Gaza. He gave his account for what he has experienced right now. And I thought that was the best thing to bring to this audience, as I think it's a really hard conversation. It's sensitive, but for someone that's actually been there, has served vulnerable populations, and is Catholic, I thought there was no better messenger. So I just ask all of you to listen to it with an open mind. And I'm really proud that I got to speak to him, and I'm proud of the work that he's doing. So go check that one out. And then if you got one more fun one, Jimmy Akin, Dire Wolves. Jimmy Akin is a legend. I was starstruck literally when I talked to him, because he's got the best radio voice in the game, I think.
I did listen to that one when I was driving 1,000 miles the other day. It was good.
I mean,
a good one.
It's hard to argue with that radio. And then also,
a thumbs up.
I listened
Right.
to so Jimmy Akin, Mysterious World. I'm digging into that, and he did an episode on Jack the Ripper,
Oh
and
my
it was
gosh, yes.
awesome. It was so awesome. I'm a Jimmy Akin guy. I'm in on Jimmy Akin. So shout out to Jimmy and shout out to Jessica for setting that one up. So I did those two. If you want to check those out for more content, I'd appreciate it. Or just go over and subscribe on the YouTube. We're trying out some new content, so I'd love if you guys checked it out and gave us some feedback. But yeah, have a great weekend. Pray for us. St. Thomas More, St. Fidelis, Our Lady of Guadalupe. Pray for us, and we'll see you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend. We'll see you then. Peace.